my heart, I mean, I already wanted to help so much, but as I read over some of the struggles that you were having, it touched my heart so much, and I want to be able to help every single one of you. And I don't know that I can do that through just this situation, but my hope and my prayer is that I will be able to somehow speak something that the Lord will be able to teach you and direct you in what you need for your family. Part of the gift that we'll be sharing with you does include a free family mentor session. It's all run through the main Teaching Self-Government website. If you want to talk to me personally, don't hesitate just to email me and say, hey, I just want to talk to you, and we'll work that out too, okay? So you will have some support. If I don't address the things that you emailed, your concerns, you will have an option to kind of get some support with those things, okay? So I'm just going to jump in right now. I want to share some of my story and share maybe some key lessons that I learned along the way. If we have time at the end, I do want to kind of open it for some questions. I'm not sure how much of that time we will have, but we will do our best. So I'm going to start when, I'm going to go back long time ago when my fourth child, it seems like a long time ago. After I had my fourth child, it became very aware, became very apparent that I was in over my head. The more children that we had, this became more and more aware, but I remember it very vividly after our fourth child. And it was such an interesting place. It was a very interesting time in our life, interesting as in very hard. Our marriage was at a place that had not been before. Things had kind of like built up over the years and became to like this head. And I remember there was one point, you know, that time in that portion in Mary Poppins where they put out that advertisement for this nanny. Well, that kind of went through my mind, but it wasn't for a nanny. I was thinking, these kids need a new mom. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no clue. I'm hurting them. I don't want to hurt them, but I am, and I don't know what to do about it. My heart ached. I loved them so much, but I had no idea how to do this parenting thing. Bless my mother's heart. She had no clue, and her mother had no clue, and her mother had no clue. Just the way it happens. On my husband's side, it was the same situation. Every generation does the best with what they have, and we were pretty clueless. We knew how to quote-unquote parent with emotion. We were really good at that, but that doesn't help at all. It was very, very destructive. So what ensued after this is I realizing what a point that we were at. I have always been very prayerful, but I fled to the Lord even more every night on my knees, you know, praying and asking for forgiveness, of course, for messing up yet again. And what kind of occurred after this is every possible parenting resource that I could get a hold of, I devoured. I devoured it and I studied it. And I even was the point with one particular parenting resource that's very, very popular. I went so far as to get trained in that so that I could really understand. I wasn't so much at this point thinking about other families as I was thinking about, I've got to figure this out so I can help my family. And not just help my family, but figure out what I'm doing wrong and what I don't know so that I can help our family. And as I did that, these were all great resources and I learned beautiful things from them, but they were just like tips or tricks, or you can try this and do this, and they were good, but there was something at a core level that was fundamental within me that was missing, and I didn't know what that was. Fast forward through years and years and years of this, and you know, I mentioned on my About page on our new website that it literally was by the grace of God that I didn't give up, because it would have been very, very easy to do that. But I loved them so much, I wasn't willing to do that. So there was one particular day, this was probably, I'd say 4.5, maybe 5 years ago. I'm going to say 4.5, that's probably closest. I was sitting on the front room couch with my husband, just right there, and it was one of those evenings where we were both so frustrated with the way our house was. We were very we were very separated, disconnected. Our kids were hiding in their rooms, and we were just another frustrating end of a day. And I was saying something to him, and I just kind of blurted out. I said, I just wish they were self-governing. I had no idea what that meant, just the idea of that. I thought, hey, yeah, that would be great. They would just know what to do and do it, right? That's awesome. Not this having to get them to listen kind of situation. Now, I had no idea what that really meant, like I said, or what that would entail, especially that I would be the one that would need to teach them. So a little bit later, I received this email, just kind of out of the blue, and it was someone who I had received emails from before. Hadn't really, haven't really been a whole lot involved with this individual, but they happened to be sharing something, and their story was like totally resonating with me on multiple levels. They had a big family, we had a big family. They were trying to figure out what to do for the new school year starting, and things were starting to work on my heart a little bit about public school and what we wanted to do with our children this upcoming year. And then she mentions this thing about this phrase, teaching self-government, and I went, oh, wait a minute, that's just what I was talking about. So I'm like, I gotta listen to this, I gotta figure out what's going on. And so I clicked on this link and got more information, and I went to this website, teachingselfgovernment.com, and I'm reading over this information, and my heart's going, yes, 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 you need to listen and learn more. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And so two of the things that specifically stood out to me was the comment about some of the phrases on those, they were explaining what this was. And one of the main things was, freedom from emotional bondage. And I went, well, yeah, we need that. I need that, so my kids can have that. My husband needs that, so our kids can have that, and we can have that. And then also communicating effectively. We had no clue how to do that at all, and that was a huge struggle. So those two things kind of totally caught my attention, and I started to study it, and I very quickly realized that there was something here that we needed very much to learn. So I was able to jump on a webinar, and I invested, which I didn't. Big family. I'm have been very, very particular with what I choose to invest in, and it was a little bit of it, not a huge investment, but enough that it was like, yes, it's an investment, but this is worth it to me. There's something here. And so I did that, and the investment at that time has returned so much more full than I could even have ever imagined. I, at that point, just started to kind of implement some things that I was learning. And I wanted my husband to be on board with me. And so one day we were out back, and we were walking around the haystack, and I just kind of mentioned to him, I said, so I invested in this thing, and I've been learning this, and I really want you to learn it with me. And I know that I've written a lot of things that I've tried to teach our kids, and they haven't worked. And I kind of mentioned some things that he was doing and tried to be so very loving, right? And anyway, it was not a good situation. And he finally, in his tendency to resort to anger, said to me, he says, well, you parent how you want to, and I'll parent how I want to. And my heart all but broke. How much I knew there were things here that would profoundly bless our family, and he wasn't willing to even try. So I decided, well, I know what's here, and I'm going to do it. And so I did. So I did my best to piece whatever pieces I could together from what I found online and what I had chose to learn from, and I started teaching my children. I gathered them around, and I said, okay, we're going to learn these 4 basic skills, and this is how mom's going to handle this when this situation happens, and this is what I'm going to say, and we're going to practice this a whole bunch, okay? And we just started doing it. It wasn't perfect. Oh my goodness, it was far from perfect, but I just started. And we just kept going, and not too far into that, there was one evening when I was cooking dinner at the stove, and my oldest, who at the time was 14, and he we're just, when him and I, there had been a lot of disconnect. And he had said to me, I'm sitting there cooking and he's washing dishes, and one of the most beautiful parts is that we hadn't been able to have this kind of connection where him and I would just converse like this, and we're just kind of talking, and I was like, God, I love this, and then all of a sudden he says to me, he says, Mom, when I get married and I have my own house, will you come teach us this? And I'm thinking, teach you how to do dishes or teach you how to cook? I wasn't quite sure what he was talking about. And so I said something about the dish I was making, and he said, no. He says, this teaching self-government thing, pretty cool, Mom. And I went, oh my gosh. Like it totally, I loved it, but I had no idea that it was touching and impacting him like it was. So next part of the story is I was talking to the main guy on the Teaching Self-Government website and sharing a little bit about how I had been trained in all these other things, but there was something here that was really significant, and I just was sharing my heart about it. And he says, well, would you be interested in maybe coming and helping us? And I'm like, oh, maybe, it was definitely not my forte, still isn't. But I said, well, maybe yeah. So and he's like, okay, well, I'll have Nicolene give you a call. I'm like, okay. So she called and she said, well, I heard that you want to come help. And I'm like, yeah. My yeah was, I really want to learn more. So yeah, didn't want to go be up in front of people and share our story and spill your dirty laundry everywhere, right? But so what ended up happening because of that is my husband and I and a few of our children ended up going to a couples retreat that she does twice a year in the spring and in the fall. And it was kind of a gut-wrenching experience. It was awesome, and I learned some details that I was missing, and I was super excited about it. But the most profound thing that came from that was my husband's experience. He was willing to go with us, and he did, and which even that in of itself was a miracle because of how he wasn't obstinate as in outwardly obstinate, but he just wasn't involved. And so I went to this retreat, and afterwards he looks at me and he says, I'm in. And I said, you're in? And he says, yeah, I'm going to do this with you. And come to find out, it had been, my husband is very production oriented, right? He's just very goal oriented. He could see the changes happening in our home. And he didn't know exactly how or what to do any of that, but he could see it making a difference. And then to go to this couples retreat and be immersed in all of it, every single concept, layer, level of it for 3 days with other, husbands and fathers and mothers and wives. And it was just a very, very profound experience for him. I just adore this man, and I love him even more to see him overcome the struggles that he has had as part of this process. One example I want to share with you, not even very long after he had decided that he was in, we had a situation, again, it was with our oldest, and we had a situation where we needed to go through a correction with him, and there was some behavior that was going on, an attitude that was kind of habitual that we needed to help him to change, and we needed to have this situation, this parenting counseling session with him. And so we kind of, pulled together, and we started having this conversation, and I started feeling the emotions start to rise as they had been. I was really used to having that happen, so it was something I was needing to work through. But my husband was starting to get heated as well. He was starting to get, his emotions were starting to get ramped up, and then all of a sudden he says, I'll be right back. And he stands up and he walks out of the room. And I look at my son, he looks at me. Number one, at that point, Dad would have yelled and screamed and demanded, and the conversation would have been done. That would have been the way he normally would have handled this. But that in itself was very, very different. And then I'm thinking, how dare he get up and leave me right now in this situation, So I'm like, So I stand up and I open the bedroom door, And what I found was him on his knees. He was on his knees pleading for heaven's help, to help him, to help his child in this moment. And of course, it immediately humbled me in my self-righteousness. And I closed the door quietly, and I went and I sat back down at the table where my son was. My husband comes out, and he knew the words. We had learned the words through teaching self-government, how to address the situation, especially when you're emotionally heated. You can focus on these words, and it helps you to address the situation. The children know what to expect. They've also been taught how mom and dad are going to handle this. So we went through this correction in a way that kept him focused, and it was amazing. I was just watching him in awe because of, as he was saying what he was saying, his heart was so centered. He was so in that place of love. He just like exuded it. You know, it was so powerful. It was to me, such an example of a powerful man. And it touched me so deeply. And he was showing my son this, which was even more beautiful. So he came in and he sat down and he took care of that. And, you know, afterwards I expressed my love and gratitude to him for that powerful, powerful example. And that was such a pivotal point in our whole experience. And the more that my husband, I wish that he was here with me doing this, he helps teach our classes together, the courses that we do this. So he's not here now, he's at work, but he is a pivotal point in our home to teach our children. And these things worked, well, to an extent without him, but our home transformed when he made that choice to step up, and he could see and feel in himself the truth of what his role was, and he had the skills to be able to fulfill that. It was just transforming. It transformed our whole home. So anyway, that's a lot about our experience that I wanted to share with you. I know that wasn't super short, but it's really important that you understand our challenges, that it hasn't been easy, but it's been so worth it. And you know, we've had everything from, you know, a raging teenager yelling in my face to a kicking, hitting, screaming, hair pulling 3-year-old that we've had to teach and overcome, and everything in between. We have very, very strong-willed children. Both my husband and myself are very strong-willed. We've had our own, you know, bad habits and learned behaviors to overcome too. The powerful part of all of this is that it's possible. And to be able to transform from knowing nothing but desiring so much to just be able to love my children and to be the mom that I wanted to be, and to be able to have the ability to actually do that now, to progress in that, because it's a continual progression, but it is night and day from where we were before, and I'm so grateful for that. One of the things that I want to share, where most of you, obviously all of you who are probably on here, homeschool your children, I want to share a little bit about that process because it connects so significantly to everything that I have shared. This information, like I had shared, about teaching self-government came into our path before I felt the, I would say call, but it was more like a scream, maybe. I don't know how else to describe that. It couldn't have been missed, so I'll just word it that way. And I had tried to, maybe the thought had come to my mind over the years to homeschool my children, but I was like, there's no way. I even tried to homeschool my one daughter, who was now 14 when she was in kindergarten, and that was horrible. You can't do public school at home. I didn't know that, but that's what I was trying to do, and it was not good. So after that experience, like, no, I'm not even going to consider it. And then my husband, out of all places, started to kind of talk about it because he had a friend who their family homeschooled. Anyway, so one day after we were learning this teaching self-government thing and things were starting to really, I started loving being a mom again. I used to dread, I always wanted to be a mom and I loved my children, but because it was such a struggle, I didn't love what I thought it meant to be a mom. I didn't love what was happening anyway. But as I started to learn how to teach and correct my children in a way that actually they were able to actually learn and choose better behavior, it was our relationships improved, and we were able to have these heart connections that both of us, all of us really wanted, but didn't know how to go about that. I started to kind of feel this thing working on me about homeschooling again. And we had gone through the first semester, and it was like actually it was over Christmas break, and I could start to feel my oldest son, it wasn't just him, it was a couple of the older ones. I could start to feel this even more of a disconnect happening. And I got this impression so clear. It was pull your babies back and pull them back now. And I went, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I did it. And I went and I pulled them out. And I had teachers who were raving mad. My kids were, excuse me, my kids were all 4.0 students and above, teaching the other kids. And, you know, they were totally excelling. And I I pulled them home, and I had no idea what I was doing, and the Lord knew all that. So he, you know, everything was in the works, as it has been all along this whole process. But there was one time, in addition to that pull your babies back and pull them back now, I was given to see something that would only unfold in even more fullness. But what that was that I was giving up a privilege that was entrusted to me. And I felt the pang of that. Like I felt that reality of there was something that I was given to fulfill as their mother that I was not. And I thought that that's what parents did. That's how moms coped, right? Was to send their kids off to public school. That's what I was doing. That's everything that I knew growing up. And again, it's not to blame anybody. Blame doesn't help any of us. It's just, it is what it is. Freedom and all of that comes when we realize that we actually have a choice. And that's where I was, and that's where I am. And it's a beautiful place to be. I love being a mom now. I was sharing with someone recently about homeschooling, and she said, well, how do you do that? And I kind of shared some things. Well, I'm a detail-oriented person, so it wasn't just a little. I shared more than I probably should have. But I was able to, one thing I was able to communicate, which she looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I'm a better mom now than I ever have been. And she looks at me like, how is that possible? And the only thing I can explain to you is because I learned what it meant to be a mom. I learned what it meant to be a mom, and my heart wanted that all along, but I didn't know how. I know with all that I am that all of these things have been taught throughout the whole existence of the world, right? Throughout all of history. But what happens is, just like any other truth, it kind of gets lost. People get selfish and they kind of do their, you know, like you look at our culture, right? The American culture, if you want to just be more specific and narrow it down here, and how, you know, the industrial age and even World War II and how all these things happen, families started to separate. They moved away from their roots, and all those people who were meant to teach us these things, we just separated more and more and more and more. And I look at my family history, and I could see that to the point of even, you know, husbands and wives separating, and just huge, you know, separation. And so all these things that we've been meant to learn as just by being part of a family, they're not intact anymore. They're just not. That's the reality of the state that we're in. So we have to listen to that. Every single one of you, you're on this call. Obviously, you have that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this call. That yearning in your heart, that you know that there is truth to this role of a mother. There's truth to this role, and you know that it's not just meant to be suffering and struggle for you and your children, right? There's some part of you that knows there's some kind of joy there, right? It's just the reality of that. But we don't know exactly how to do that. And so as I've learned that, as I've learned a lot of that, it's helped me to be able to do and to fulfill what I need to. And I'm grateful to be able to share those things. One of the big things with all of this is the reality of, that's a reality of parenting today, right? That we're in this situation where we need to learn how to do it the way that it was given to be done, the way that it works. Because the things that's happening today, the way that we're trying to parent, they just don't work. I'm sorry, tips and tricks help, but they just don't work long term. And our children, the second point of this parenting today's child is our children need us desperately. That pull that I felt to homeschool my children, it was much more than just secular education. It was my children need me. They need me, and they need me more than they need a teacher who can teach them how to do trigonometry, right? They can learn that along the way, but they need me. And every child is in this position. No matter how much any government or anything else wants to try to replace that, they can't. And as much as we want to try to replace it with something, we can't. That's the reality that we have to face. We have to, if we want something different, we have to be willing to receive what we've been given and take accountability for this position. Again, it's not about blame. If any of you are if you're feeling bad about anything, don't. Stop it now. Because we've all done the best with what we know, with what we have, with what we know, where we were. But the point is that we're here now. We've got some resources to support parents that have, I wish I had had them when I started this. We've got a 5-week parenting course that we do. There's other resources offered directly from the Teaching Self-Government website. If you go to my website, parentingtodayschild.com, there is some information there that kind of gives you more insight into teaching self-government. There's also a upcoming classes tab where I've got some more resources there. And then Brenda will be giving you a link that you can get a free gift to get a free parenting assessment course that you can go through, as well as register for that free family mentor session. If you want to do that, Brenda, that'd be great. And I'm going to go ahead and just share a couple other things really quickly, because I want you guys to actually have some things that you can walk away with. There's so much, and so I'm trying really hard to focus on what it is that we need to share today. As I look through the comments that you guys submitted, there was such a spectrum. There were people who knew nothing about teaching self-government. There were some people who knew a little, and then there were some that apparently knew a lot, but they were struggling with it. And I have to share with you guys, okay, I'm going to be so super just honest and say it how it is here, okay? There's a lot of people who are turned off by teaching self-government, and I think because, well, I know it's because they're only seeing, just like anything else, only seeing little snippets of it, right? And so in seeing just little snippets of it, you miss the whole. And because of this whole process, it's been so important to me to really understand what it's about. And so I have put my heart into, especially as we do this 5-week course that we do with parents, to really help parents understand the truth at the core of this. It's not getting caught up in another parenting system. In fact, I'm going to ask you to throw that idea out the door if that's what this looks like to you. What I want to help parents understand is the truth at the core of what Nicolene Peck has tried to bring forward with this resource. That's what I want to speak to, and that's what I want to help parents to understand and grasp. There are 5 keys that are taught in this system, and the 5 keys are: number 1 is roles, number 2 is assess, number 3 is make a plan, number 4 is act deliberately, and 5 is check back, okay? The very first one, roles, it used to just be the 4 keys. And when we first came into this, it started to come forward that this roles thing is it's not known. Like, we don't understand the significance of this. And for me, it has been like the number 1. And so it was very fitting as I came along that this kind of made its way to number 1. Everything that I just explained to you, my ability to learn how to be calm, my ability to learn how to be consistent, both are 2 things that are my major downfalls, my weaknesses. I have learned as I've come to learn the truth of what my role is. All of this is so multi-layered and multifaceted that as you learn this, you're gonna constantly learn. Things are gonna continually be opened up to you. You come and you can learn some skills, but it is so much deeper. It's so much more than just skills or behavior management. It literally is about a change of heart. Your heart, your spouse's heart, your children's heart, the heart of your whole family. It's a very profound and beautiful experience, and one that we are grateful to be able to help parents. So with the roles thing, which I just talked about, the next step is assessment, and the free gift is going to actually help you to assess your situation, to see where you're at, what's been happening with parenting, the history of it, the reality of where we are, and it will also give you the support to go forward. As I said, with that free gift, there's going to be the opportunity to schedule a family mentor, free family mentor session. It's either going to be with Nicolene or one of the other certified mentors. They may ask me to help, they may not. So I'm just letting you know that it may not be me. But I would be happy to schedule a time, to 15, 20 minutes to visit with any of you that want that. So you can just email me, go to my website and click the contact link and just send me an email. I would love to just to help you to get started in the direction of just some support to maybe get going. So then you've got the third step after you've got roles and assess, it is make a plan. Those sessions, those little consulting with me or with whoever it is that you get to be scheduled with, that's part of you starting to create a plan of how to move forward here. And then part of that plan is you gaining skills. You gaining skills and understanding and comprehension that we currently don't have. If we're struggling, we're missing something, right? I mean, yes, I know part of that process of learning, of becoming, it is a struggle, but part of that struggle is because we don't know something that we need to learn. So part of this make a plan is that you need to be able to decide what's right for your family. What's the next step for my family? And then the next step is act deliberately, and you'll have the opportunity to make that commitment, to choose what's right for your family, whether it's something that has to do with teaching self-government or not, that doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you need to decide, make that plan, and you get to act deliberately, and then you get to check back, okay? I'm not sure how many of you that your spouse is on board or not, but that I think that, and even before that, is with God directly. My hope is that every single one of you are praying, that you are having that relationship of seeking that person, that being who knows far more than we know and can see far further than we can, and is helping us far more than we even realize. So if you check back with him, check back with your spouse, talk about what's working, what's not working, and then you go through the process again. You're looking at the situation, you make a new plan, you act deliberately upon it, and you check back. This is a process that we're going to go through again and again and again, and it unfolds more vistas of beauty and of freedom for you and your children than maybe we can even fully comprehend right now. So anyway, I'm not sure how much time we have left, Brenda, but I kind of want to ask if there is a pressing question. Again, there were so many that were submitted that I would love to speak to those, and we are just not going to have the time to do that. But again, I provided some resources that will help you if that's really what you're wanting, to get that support. But right now, are there any questions that anybody is like, I really need this answered right now? If so, raise your hand or say something in the chat box.
And we actually have until 2:30 our time at the latest.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So everybody's prepared to be here for an hour to an hour and a half. That's what we sent out. So
okay, awesome.
You have more time than you think, which is great. It's like a president.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. Yeah, so there were, and if nobody does have something pressing, I can try to pull that up and see which ones stand out to me. There is one off the top of my head that maybe I can go into a little bit while you guys are thinking. Am I brave?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I've known about self-government for a while, and I've taken a webinar from Nicolene, and my husband thinks it's great. We're kind of overwhelmed on how to implement it. I've got the picture books. I've read them to my kids, but I have a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And my 2 teenagers, every time I try to speak that language, like you need to disagree appropriately, they just roll their eyes and walk away. And I feel very frustrated because I feel like I need this more for them than anybody. But I feel like they just think, oh, this is another one of Mom's things. She's trying again, and they don't believe it's going to work or follow through. And I'm not good at follow through. And so how do you deal with those teenagers? It sounds like you have teenagers too. So how do you deal with them like accepting this or seeing that we're trying to make your family better by doing this, not trying to make them feel stupid.
Yeah, right. Thank you for asking that. This is actually a lot bigger answer than is just, I can't just give you a quick answer, so bear with me, okay? One of the first things, okay, first I'll say that this is the reason that we do the 5-week parenting course. What that is we actually walk parents 5 through 5 weeks of implementing the system in their home week to week. You come, you learn, you go home with homework, you connect with your kids, and you apply certain steps one at a time throughout a 5-week period. It's profoundly, I love it. Like I said, I wish I would have had it. So what we do with parents is there's a whole system, a whole pattern of this that we actually lay out. And it doesn't matter where you are in your situation. You said that you've tried, right? You've implemented these things and you've tried. But I always encourage parents, start from the beginning. Let's go to the very, very beginning. You know, you've talked to your kids. We've done this. We've tried this. We're gonna do a restart. You know, I use the phrase a lot with my kids, reset, redo. We're going to do a redo. We're going to take a deep breath and reset. And we're going to redo it again. We do that a lot in our home. One of the biggest things as I was listening to you, and I'll go through kind of how we lay that out real briefly, but I want to speak to you personally for just a second. In that, a couple of things that stood out to me. Obviously, I don't know all the details of your situation, but what I do know is what I've experienced with my children and what I kind of came to my mind as you were talking. Now, they're going to push back. Anytime you do anything, especially with older children, right, they are going to push back. Younger ones do it too. So it's going to happen, I think, across the board. But the biggest thing is that consistency. Is that consistency with what you're choosing? Now, that's easy to just say that like that because you're like, oh man, yeah, that's an easy one. That actually, consistency comes from your heart. Consistency comes from your heart and you actually believing that something is possible and being willing to choose that, even if it is so hard. My life, if nothing else, is an example of the reality of the effectiveness of truth. Truth will always bear itself out. And that is something that I held to. If there is truth here, if there are true principles in this, it will work. It will change my family. It will help them. So I stuck to it. Number one, I stuck to what I knew in my heart. Even with my husband saying, you're on your own, I stuck to it and I kept going. That was number one. Number two is that as I continued to do that, I continued to go through the self-government of my own heart, okay? Because I knew that there were things that actually I needed, that if I didn't know how to be calm, if I didn't know how and be learning these things, it wasn't going to help them. It was going to be, Mom's still upset, but she just using different words, right? I've had to look at my own heart and be willing to be really, really honest and take those things to God and to be willing to have Him crying and asking Him to help me to see, to go through those 5 steps to make those changes within myself. And He does. I guarantee if you are willing, He will help you. It isn't always comfortable or easy or fun, but He will help you. The next thing is communication. I'm not sure, communication and relationship building. There are innate in this whole thing that Nicolina's put together, the meetings, the weekly meetings, where you are connecting with your child and your spouse and you and your child, each individual child. There's also connecting with your spouse at least once a week. Hopefully you're doing that a lot more. But one time where you're meeting and doing that very, very specifically, where you're talking about the children, about what you see happening. And then you set a time weekly with each child where you have these mentor meetings. And there's, Nicolina, of course, has these lists that you can go through of things to discuss. But, there's lots of different things that you can discuss in a mentor meeting. But it's a time where you are beginning to build those bonds back with your children. Our children want to change. Our children need to want to change. And they need to know that it's worth it for them. They've seen us as parents try so many different things. Our spouses have, right? Our spouses and our children, we've tried so many different things. Oh yeah, my kids will tell you the same thing, by the way. They thought the same thing. Oh, another one of Mom's things, And the difference with all of this was my commitment to us, to them. And it wasn't just about some tip or trick. It was about building our home back. You know, gather them together. This is one of the very first steps that we have parents do, is gather your family with your spouse first, and then gather your children together. Create a vision. What do we want for our family? You want to give your kids a reason to actually choose in to change. Not that they're not still going to kind of push because they're used to the old, comfortable pile of manure, right? But they also need, more than anything, to have that reason to change. And as you start to create that vision with them and you start to build those relationships, they start to see what you're saying. They start to feel mom's heart changing. They start to feel dad's heart changing. Everybody starts to realize this is actually for real. This is for real, what we really wanted for our family, and you see how this is going to happen. Another thing is family activities. You know, I know that there's you know, family home evenings and things like that. I'm talking about activities like where you're just having fun. Just go have fun together, play board games, go outside and just be silly, throwing a ball around, you know, doing things. You're building relationships with your children. These are the things that help the children to want to choose into the good that the parents are trying to teach them. They start to see and feel it for themselves. These kids are so brilliant. They are so strong-willed. They have, and all of this is on purpose. They need to have that, which means that we need to be so clear in our role and in what our mission as parents, that we can speak directly to their hearts with everything else that is trying to pull for that. So that's what I would have to share with you. That was not a short answer. I'm not sure if it helped at all. If not, email me and we'll talk more. I see that there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just say it out loud for you. And then so we've got Nancy first. She suggested to just go over the 4 skills really quickly and kind of introduce them to those that are here who haven't heard of them before.
Okay.
We'll go on to Robin, and then we've got Rachel.
Okay. The 4 basic skills. Okay, that's what they're called. The first one is accepting, and how to accept a no answer. How many adults need to learn how to do this, right? It's huge. It's not just for kids. There's accepting no answers. Have them memorized, but not always in the right order. Accepting consequences. Disagreeing appropriately. And accepting, hold on, I need to word this correctly. Give me just a second. I got my poster on the board.
And I want to, while she's going and doing that, I just want to second what she was talking about coming from the heart. And one of the things that amazed me after talking to Dee Dee and spending time in her class was that I realized that I didn't have to get angry anymore in order to solve concerns in my home. So, okay, go ahead.
No, it's so funny. I couldn't think of what it's actually it's the first one. It's following instructions, right? That's the other one. So following instructions, accepting no answers, accepting consequences or criticism. Some kids can accept positive or negative criticism. I think that there is a huge thing that has to be learned as parents on appropriate criticism, because there's things that we just don't need to say anything about. And that's something too that you'll learn as you go through this. And then disagreeing appropriately. Now, disagreeing appropriately, and the whole list of them is the last one. However, it is the skill the kids love. They love it, that they have a voice. And my kids will tell you that. They're like, I didn't feel like I had a voice until this all came along and I was taught how to have a voice. And at first, you know, I had to hold myself back. It's okay. It's okay. You know, that they're asking to disagree appropriately. But I started to learn that I would rather they disagree appropriately than inappropriately. So I want to teach them how to do that appropriately. And it was such a powerful way to actually change my heart. I didn't realize how much I was holding in my heart of that I didn't even want to say yes to my child who's asking to disagree appropriately. You know, it's kind of silly to me now, but at that time I was like, I want to just tell him no. You know, I was in such a bad place. So anyway, but I love how that feeling that's kind of, that I have been able to learn and live, which is so beautiful, that, excuse me, that I want to give a yes answer. I want to give a yes answer as much as I possibly can. I'm not talking about permissiveness. I'm not talking about saying yes when I should say no. I'm not talking about not setting boundaries. That actually is so important. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the points, the times and the different situations when I am in a place of, I don't know, when I have been in a place of just wanting to be in control and just saying no because I can, or saying no because it would require a little bit more out of me to say yes than to say yes, right? So they are all things I've had to face within myself. But as I've been willing to do that and to learn how to do these things more effectively, I love it. I love how it feels to give a yes answer, and your child is happy. They got a yes, you know? So anyway, so that was the 4 basic skills. Did you want me to go into them any more than that?
No, I don't think so. I think just an introduction, just so everybody kind of, I mean, it's kind of a teaser. We don't have a ton of time right now, but I hope that even just those titles get people to go, oh, that would be pretty amazing if my kids learned how to follow instructions, or if they learned.
Yeah.
It is. It's powerful. It really is. I'm going to unmute Robin for a minute, and she has a question, and then Bree had a question.
Okay.
Or Rachel, I'm sorry, not, but we'll go with Robin right now. There we go.
Okay, I just typed it in. Thank you. So it's basically like how to start with kids who are so used to discord and contention. Like how do you help them recognize that this is actually possible, it's feasible?
Yeah, good question. And that was so my kids. That was so my kids. That's what we lived. That's what we lived. It begins in the same way as I answered the previous question. Everything begins with being able to instill vision to your children. That is, and you actually include them in this. I love this part of the 5-week course where we actually have the couples write down, and you can do this. You can start this today with your spouse, by yourself, and then take it to your spouse if they're willing. If not, keep doing it. At one point they will. I guarantee truth has a way of making itself, it has a trick of making its own way. Anyway, you need to identify your core principles. What matters to me? What matters to my husband? What matters to us as a family? Do this with your spouse, and then you take it to your children. Say, we realize that there's some changes that we need to make. What kind of a family do we want to have? One way that we did this with our children is the ones who couldn't write, we had them draw pictures. And then we put together a big collage of the kind of family and home that they wanted to have. And we created together a family vision of what we wanted that was significant to us. And then as mom and dad had these skills, then we introduced them like this. Well, we did first talk about the roles. This is what mom and dad's role is going to be in creating this vision. And this is what your role is going to be in creating this vision. Some kids do not know their roles. I mean, parents don't know. I mean, they know I'm a mom and a dad, and I change diapers and I make food and I go to work or whatever it is. But I'm talking about the core intrinsic truth of who and what we are, and this whole situation of what a family is and how it works and we're supposed to produce, right? The fruit of what a family is supposed to produce. To have those conversations about roles with our children. So create vision, work on that together, have a discussion about roles. And then we can move into, and this is how mom and daddy this is how we're going to help create that environment in our home. These are the 4 skills that we're going to use. These are the 5 teaching methods mom and dad are going to use. Okay, and this is how we're going to address situations when there's a problem. You go through all of that. We lay that out. This is how we're going to do it. And then you get to do it. And then you're in the real life where you get to do the corrections and you get to walk through those situations with your children. But you are constantly talking about this in our family. This is how we do this. And as I correct our children, I actually talk about this. We don't do this in our family. This is how we handle this in our family. And I prompt them and I show them, and then I have them redo it in the moment so they can feel what it feels like to do it in that different way, which is huge for our family, to feel themselves doing it differently. As I had been doing this for a while, I went to a mentor recertification thing that Nicolene has mentors do. And And I was struggling with some things and I couldn't figure out what it was. And there were actually three P's, three words that started with P's that stood out to me that I was not doing very good on. And I thought I was, but apparently not. And it was pre-teach, practice, and praise. And I thought, oh, wow, those are powerful. Because I had been doing it for a couple of years and it was awesome, a huge difference from where we were. But I was missing something and I realized, okay, I'm not very good. I realize I need to be better about pre-teaching. You pre-teach everything. Okay, before you have dinner, we're going to have dinner and this is what we're going to do. And this, if your child has an issue at dinner time, this is how mom and dad are asking you to do this. If you choose not to do this, this is what's going to occur. But if you choose to do this, this is what you will experience, right? We pre-teach everything. When you're in a vehicle driving somewhere, you pre-teach what you're going to be doing when you get there. And then you get to follow through with that. The consequences the children have been taught beforehand, so you're not making these up willy-nilly anymore. These kids are so ridden with anxiety. They need us to be a secure, safe place. And if we talk to them and we teach them how we're going to handle something, when they get that consequence, they know it's coming and they know what it's going to be. The fear is gone. That is powerful for our kids. It's powerful for me to know what to say and to do, and it's powerful for them. That actually also helps build that relationship that they need in order to trust you enough to respect you as their parent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that pre-teaching, and then you've got the practice. That's what we're doing as parents. Every day, all day long, we're practicing being parents. We're trying to figure this out. Practice is becoming. As we practice and we do something more and more and more, we become it. We become and we grow, we become, they grow and they become, and our family becomes what we're creating. In a very down-to-earth, real-life sense, practice is what I was saying when I say, okay, this is how we do it in our family. I have them do it right there. We do that all day long. All day long. Anytime there's a correction, I have them practice it the right way. I have them practice it the way that supports in achieving that family vision of what we're wanting to create as a family, that the kind of feeling that we want in our home and a sight of what we're wanting to create in the future. So it's not just in the future, it's what do we do right now? If we do it this way, this is what brings that feeling and that spirit into our home. So let's do it that way right now. And then they go do their consequence that they chose by that behavior, which you do it in love. And so they're like, no big deal. They do it, come back. And then there's the praise part. So pre-teach, practice, and praise. When they check back, every part of the skill, every part of the 4 skills has check back at the end. And that check back is so huge because that's where you get to give that child a big high five. And you did it. That was awesome. You were so responsible. You were so mature and accepting that no answer and that consequence. You did it. That was awesome. Just giving that big high five. That feeds a child to be able to see this behavior was good. This behavior turns the lights on. One of the resources that I studied was positive parenting. I think it was Greg Itham or Lytham. I can't remember exactly, but actually it was somebody else, but he discussed this too. He was talking about that parents are a child's favorite toy. Right? Like they know exactly what button to push to turn the lights on, whether it's anger or anything else. And so to be able to teach your children, that they're going to be acknowledged and they're going to get that huge payoff that they're wanting in a good way, not by negative behavior, but by actually using their skills. And mom and dad are going to notice it and they're going to praise you for it, right? It's not empty junk food praise. It's very specific acknowledgement of what they've done. That was awesome. It is awesome. Yes, thank you, whoever put that up there. Thank you. It's very, very specific praise so they can see this actually produces really good results. I like this. So anyway, same way with us. So the pre-teach, practice, and praise. Those are 3 P's that have been, as you guys continue to move forward, you're going to see that those are 3 of the things that constantly on your heart and mind that you're going to be going back to again and again and again and again. They're very powerful.
Thank you.
You bet. Is there another question, Brenda, that you can hear?
Sorry, I was muted. So I'm trying to get Rachel's. Okay, she says, I'm curious what the first reaction of your older kids, like your 14-year-old, was to the new change. We have a huge issue with disagreeing appropriately for everyone over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, okay. So I will speak to that for just a minute. If I'm understanding that question correctly, okay, my reaction, my son's first reaction, my older ones, is it was, again, this is just another thing that mom's doing. You know, there was the opposition. There always will be. There always will be. You've got to accept that. However, when the kids start to see for themselves, that's when the change starts to happen. And that's where you start to create that vision. You start to create that feeling in your home by the use of this process of pulling the family together and creating that vision, and the things that we've already talked about. All those things starts to create this feeling that the kids feel, that they become aware of, and they start to realize, actually, this is possible. I can feel it for myself. Of course it's possible. And then as you continue to teach the children the skills, such as disagree appropriately, they learn that they can be heard, that they can have a say. And as you have family meetings, they have a voice there. As you have the meetings with them one-on-one individually each week, they have a voice there. The kids start to realize that they have a part in this family. They're not just being, controlled and made to do things. Mom and dad still have their role, always, and mom and dad are the final say. When it comes to disagreeing appropriately, there's a way that helps to teach that as well. Yes, the child has a voice to disagree appropriately, but they only have, this is something that must be taught up front, and if you haven't, you can teach it now. Say from now on, yeah, I didn't know this before and you didn't know this before, but from now on, you may only disagree appropriately one time with each situation. So when the child comes to you and you give a no answer, and they say, well, may I disagree appropriately? You're like, of course you may disagree appropriately, so then they go through that whole thing, and then at the end, that final step of disagreeing appropriately is drop the subject, okay? If they don't drop that subject, at that point, I actually, depending on the situation, if the child is in control enough that I can go through a regular correction, I will go through that correction with them. Just now, I gave you a no answer. You disagreed appropriately and you chose not to drop the subject. What you need to do is drop that subject now, okay? The answer is no. If the child refuses at that point, then I would go into the rule of 3. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the rule of 3, but I love it. I love it. It requires of me, and I love it because it immediately puts the power in the hands of the child for their own behavior. We go through that whole step with them, and that if you have a very obstinate youth, I don't like the word teenager, I almost said it, but I didn't, so I'm glad. If you have an obstinate youth, then it's going to take a little bit of maybe having to go through the rule of 3 a few times. My oldest son, he knew how to play the system, even this one. He was really very, very intelligent, and so he did a lot. And at first, he will tell you, my heart wasn't in it. I was just going through it and saying what I needed to say, but my heart wasn't right. But there was a point where his heart changed, and it wasn't because I told him he had to. It wasn't because I demanded it. It was because I stayed consistent. I used the skills that I had pre-taught him. There was no willy-nilly, consequence or way of handling it. The more consistent I was, the more he was able to feel that safety and security, and the more that he was willing to choose into that. The other part that may be what you meant when it comes to disagreeing appropriately again and again and again. At first, if it's different situations, if that's what you're talking about, if it's different situations, at first that's going to happen. They're starting to realize they have a voice, right? So they're going to disagree appropriately, probably about everything for the first little while. But again, as you continue to stay consistent with this, they will start to realize that they don't have to, that they're actually heard even outside a situation where they're given an instruction or a no answer, and they just don't need to do it so much anymore. Does that make sense? And so I had a mom who took one of our 5-week classes, and she stopped me one day and she says, my child just disagrees appropriately again and again and again and again and again about everything. And I said, good. And she's like, no. I said, no, really, that's good. You want them to disagree appropriately, right? Oh, yeah, I want that. But he keeps doing it all the time. And then I just tried to share that same thing I just shared with you. It's part of the process. It is part of the process. Now, I got to a point, there's also part of this process that you will feel as a parent as you're continuing to seek that counsel and help from heaven to know to implement all of this the right way with his help, that you'll be aware this child's kind of playing this one a little bit, right? And so part of something with our children is there's a specific one, and we've kind of had to pull aside on like a little parent counseling session or during a mentor meeting, and just having a heart to heart and be very open about it. I see that you are disagreeing appropriately about everything. Okay, you've got that skill down. Awesome. High five. You got that one. We need to work on another one. Okay, that other one is that you need to work on following instructions and accepting no answers. And so mom is going to ask you the next time you ask to disagree appropriately, I'm going to ask you to just say okay and be okay with that instruction. And so when you see a situation where a child is maybe working something more than they need to, yes, it's normal as part of the process, but if it goes beyond that, use your parenting instincts here to be conscious and aware of what's occurring. It's not just about a set system, you guys. These are all tools to support you, but you've got to fulfill your role with your creator. He's the one that created all this. He knows how to do it right. You'll know when a child is kind of working something, and you need to listen. And again, it's through deliberate heart-to-heart communication that you'll be able to address that situation and correct it. Okay?
Thank you, Dee Dee.
You bet.
Thank you. Janelyn asks, what are your consequences? Are they similar or the same to Nicolene's and the ones she talks about?
I'm not sure. I'll just tell you what we do. I'm not sure exactly what ones you're referring to with Nicolene. Ours are so easy. I keep it simple. For me, I have got to do that. Our consequence is an extra chore. During the summer, where we live, it's out like in a rural area, and we have weeds everywhere. So during the summer, they're asked to go pull 5 weeds and check back. During the winter, we have a wood burning stove. They bring in 5 logs and check back. It's something so simple. It's an extra chore. Sometimes it's something like that, or if there's stuff on the floor, I'll say, go pick up 5 things and come check back. And that's it. And with our youngest child, she said, is that just one hand? I said, yep, one hand. And that way she knows, it's 5 fingers, she has one hand. If she's got the point where it's 2 extra chores, is that 2 hands? Yep, 2 hands. And then she does it and she'll check back. So we don't go beyond 2 extra chores. At that point, a child either goes to a calm spot if they're younger than 6, 7, 8. If they're older than that, then I would start the rule of 3 at that point. So to answer that, we do extra chores. And it's very, very simple. I try to keep it the same, and we make it simple. Sometimes a child is exhausted and they're having a meltdown because they're tired, right? But I don't want to not follow through on the consequence. So if there's like a sock on the floor, I'll say, for your extra chore, I want you to go pick up that sock, put it in the laundry room, and check back. Something so simple that even though they're having this huge meltdown, that they realize in their little mind, it's okay, I can do that. They'll do it, they'll get it done. You can give a big hug and a high five and go tuck them in. So it really, again, that's what we use, but you've got to use your mom heart. You got to be listening and to know what to do in each specific situation, okay?
Thanks. Mm-hmm. Tana is asking, she says, our current family has 3 different last names. They don't all refer to me as mom, nor my husband as dad. Can this program work for combined families?
Yes, I think it would be awesome. Anytime because what you're wanting, in my mind, what I would want, and this is just me speaking from my situation here, is that you would want to unite this family, right? You're trying to have all these different families and pull them together. You need to create a unified vision. That's where you've got to start. Okay, what do we want in this home? What do we want together? Yes, we have all these different situations maybe outside of this home, but what do we want when we're here? And you start there, and then you lay out, this is how we're going to do that. These are the skills that we're going to learn. This is how we're going to communicate with each other, and this is how we're going to handle it when there's conflict. So yes, it worked perfectly. It'd be beautiful.
And can I interpret a little bit of that, Dee Dee?
Yes.
So it seems like that goes back to roles too, because I think in a blended family, it's really hard to define roles. And once you define what your role is, you may not be their mom, but you are the woman of the home.
Yes.
And so that might take some work to define those roles, but
Well,
yeah, it would be great.
Thank you for saying that, Brenda, because that would be the next part after you kind of create this family vision, is you would want, again, you'd want to identify the roles. This is going to be my role in this as the mom or the woman of the house, and the dad or the man. This is the role of the dad or the man of the house. You're going to speak to those things after you kind of pull this vision together. This is what I'm going to do to help create this vision. This is what Dad's going to do to help create the vision. And this is what each of you get to do. This is your role, and this is how you're going to help create this vision.
Awesome.
Thank you for bringing that up. It was not even in my mind at that moment.
Let me see. There was another one. And this one, okay, this is from Julie. What would you say that you, Dee Dee, add or bring to the table in regards to how you teach TSG compared to Nicolene? Brenda mentioned that you do it a little bit different.
Okay.
So I don't mean to get you into trouble. But
there's no trouble. There's no trouble. I will just tell you, when I first learned this, I was like, Nicolene, there's not enough heart talk. There's not enough about, I know that you talk about it, and you, it's in your book, it's everywhere, but in actually teaching the principles, I'm like, this is being missed. This is something that's being missed. And she, in saying, you know, and kind of being that open and deliberate in that situation, she's like, yeah, you're right, it is. You know, a lot of things she kind of took for granted that people were getting, and one of those was the roles. Another one was the reality of the heart. Nicolene is a phenomenal teacher. I don't know, it's just different. I mean, her personality and how she maybe addresses the situation it's just different than the way that I do it. But for sure, what I have learned for me is the significance of focusing on the heart of what this is actually all about. And Nicolene does that too. So again, I'm not really sure. maybe you'd be able to speak to that better, Brenda, as to the difference. I don't know.
That is what I felt that was different for me for some reason. You know, sometimes different personalities just click with different people.
Yeah.
And for me, I heard Nicolene several times. I read her book. I listened to the audios. I felt like I had a lot of tastes of a lot of what she had to offer. But for some reason, it wasn't until I heard it from you that I went, I can do this, and I actually want to do this. Like, now I can see, and it really was about the heart for me. It was about me understanding that part of, I don't have to be angry. Yeah. And that was really what you taught me, that concept of how to be still and calm and show love while I was correcting. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was a huge difference.
Yeah. I guess to answer that one, they're really, the concepts are all the same. It's just in who's sharing it and with what their history is. What my background and my experience is as compared to what Nicolene and her experience is, not different, not me either one better, but just different. And so however that, you know, colors how we maybe share and our personalities, that's all that I can say, because the truths are there, however you're learning it. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay, and I'm skimming through. So Jamelyn wanted to double check that sodas and losing privileges were the other two consequences for Rule of 3.
Sodas and major maintenance is for the Rule of 3. With the Rule of 3, that's the first consequence is a major maintenance, and the second consequence is double sodas, and the third consequence is a 24-hour loss of privileges for the Rule of 3. So yeah, the extra chore is just during a correction. When the child has crossed a boundary that has been established in the home, this is the way that we do things in our home. And if you choose to not do it that way, you are crossing a boundary. That's an extra chore. You know, whenever something needs to be corrected that the child knew beforehand, you've got to always make sure you pre-taught these things, otherwise they don't have a consequence. You can correct it in the moment, but if you didn't teach it before, they don't have a consequence. The next time they will. Okay, So then you, all of those corrections, those times, that's when you would just use that extra chore.
And Janelyn said, can you talk about major maintenance and loss of privilege? What do those look like? And can I say something first? Because this is something that we've run into. And it's a combination of me not explaining it clearly in the beginning when we were, you know, and like you said, we just keep learning, right? And we keep implementing more and more, because I don't think we got it all the first time. We got more the second time, and now I'm ready for the third time because I just keep adding. So one of my children, I won't mention who, 24-hour loss of privilege, he would say, well, it hasn't started yet, Mom, because, you know, I'm in my room right now calming down and I'm not doing anything and I haven't started my chores, so I don't have my loss of privileges yet. So the title, and like this kid thinks very logically anyways, and I have now gotten to the point where I've had to explain that concept that it starts immediately, but the 24 hours don't start until you start your chores. Like so many times that finally I asked my husband, I'm like, could you please just write this up so we could like post it? Like, this is how it works. You know? So we don't argue about it anymore.
Yeah, that's huge. That's why I love those cue cards, you know, little cue cards that come with the 5-week course. And we've also got a little poster, which I couldn't think of what that fourth skill was, so I ran out there. It's just on the other side of the wall, but there's a poster you can buy that lays it out there for the kids. They can see the whole process right there on a poster, right? So yeah, it's awesome. So anyway, want me to talk more about that, right?
Yeah, we have about 5 more minutes, so just give us a quick overview of SOTAs. Somebody's asking about SOTAs, somebody's asking major maintenance and loss of privileges. So those 3, the rule of 3 basically.
Okay, rule of 3. Okay, major maintenance is when the child has got into the rule of 3, it's the first consequence, and it is for a younger child. Again, you'll have to kind of fill this one out, what's right for your family. A younger child is like a half-hour long chore. It's a chore that takes longer. A child that maybe is over the age of 8, because I wouldn't really use, you need to fill out, you know, what's right for your situation, but I really wouldn't use the rule of 3 younger than maybe 7 or even 8, right? But at that age, an hour-long chore might be a lot, so you could just do a half-hour chore. As they get older, it's an hour-long chore. It's a chore that they get to go clean out the garage, or they get to go weed a huge patch in the garden, or whatever the situation might be for you, for your family. It's a long period of time that they are focusedly working on a project. That's the major maintenance. SOTAs is a problem-solving exercise. It stands for situation, options, disadvantages, advantages, and solutions. And we give the parents a little sheet when you take the course. We send you that little sheet that you can walk your kids through. There's also a workbook that Nicolene sells that has all those in there in a book format that they can just open up the book and you can go through the SOTAs with them. They do double SOTAs or 2 SOTAs because it actually is less, well, in some ways, a less consequence than the first one, because you kind of want to give a bigger whammy at first, is the way that it was explained to me, because I asked this, well, why is something smaller second? But you kind of want to give them the bigger whammy first, and then if they can continue, then they obviously are going to go to the next consequence, which is the double SOTAs, and they can learn some problem-solving skills. But if they're really not committed to changing, then you go to the worst one, right, which is the 24-hour loss of privileges. And that's a situation where, and it really isn't 24 hours, because probably at least 6 or 8 of those a child would be sleeping, right? But it is that they have no privileges other. They have their needs, right? They can eat 3 square meals a day. They can sleep in their bed at night. They're entitled to your love, their safe home, all of those, you know, basic needs. Everything else is a privilege. Computer, books, alone time in their room, snacks, whatever you feel, you know, those things really are all privileges. Also, during that 24-hour loss of privileges, they are working. They are working with you, preferably. You can give them a task, go out and do this, and then they can come back and check back with you if that works better for you. But they're actually working during the 24-hour loss of privileges. The 24-hour loss of privileges really becomes a lot longer when the child chooses to not accept it, because it cannot start until they're willing to accept that consequence. They still don't have privileges. You're not going to get into power struggles over things, but everything that is a privilege, you just remind them that is a privilege. You may not do that. Okay, and there's a lot more that we could discuss on that, which we don't have time today, because there's a lot of different situations and ways that you can go into that. You're like, yeah, but it works, and it works out. So anyway, but yeah, that's that. Anyway, did you want me to try to speak on anything else in like 30 seconds?
Well, Bree has a really good question there. She says, what if you don't want to use chores as a consequence because you want them to like to work?
Oh, you know what? I have heard that before. And I think it's awesome. And I still think you should use it. And I'll tell you why. There is an extra chore is something that is actually such a gift to the child. And I think the best way to teach a child to love to work is that you work with them outside of the extra chores. Now, if you're only doing consequence, extra chore as a consequence, but you're not working with your child outside of that, they're going to associate it probably with something negative, right? But if you are doing all this other stuff with them and teaching them the love of work outside of that, it's just something they do. Of course, it would just be a natural consequence. It's just part of what they do. And that's why I like it. That's why I chose to do it. But I have heard that argument, so you might just need to fill that one out, because you do need to choose the consequence that's right for your family. But I love to work with my children. My children love to work. They see the fruits of that. They're
proud of it. Your kids are proud of their work. They're proud that they're hard workers. I love to talk to Hunter about the stuff that he's done. And yeah, and you guys have been using this for a long time, and yet he loves to work. He's 15, 16 now?
15.
15? Yeah. I get to mentor him in my Quest class, so I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm. He's almost 16. He'll tell you, I'm only just a couple months away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we really need to end here. We can't keep going, although there's a few more questions, and I'm sure, but I could throw questions at Dee Dee too for the next hour or two. So we did send out the link, and let me pop that one more time into the chat box here. This form right here is going to allow Dee Dee to get in contact with you for two things. There we go. If you fill that out, she's going to be able to send you the free gift that she's been talking about, the assessment and everything. That will help a lot. That is a great tool. And then also it will put you'll have an opportunity to say, yes, I'd like to be notified when a 5-week online seminar comes up. So Dee Dee wants to know what the interest is as she's sort of looking forward to doing this. How many people really want this? I should put a comment box in there too so people could actually beg, because I'm going to beg. I'm ready. It's time again.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't talk to that. That was something that I was going to say is I'm looking at doing beginning one in May, and it would be an online one that you could join, distance from wherever you are. And so I am looking at doing that in May. So that I didn't mention that. So thank you for bringing that up. Can I say one last thing too?
Yes, please.
Okay. I was thinking about this whole situation. I am so grateful to Nicolene. She went through so much to learn these things, and she has a ton more experience than I could even imagine having. I'm grateful that she has enabled us to share this. And she wants to help families, and she's helping families all over, everywhere, all over the world. Kenya, England, Canada, everywhere that she can reach, she's helping families in a very profound way, fighting for them. I'm so grateful for her, and I'm grateful to be able to share what she has helped bring forward. So it's a huge blessing. I'm grateful for the truth, because that's what it comes down to for her, and that's what it comes down to for me. It's the truth at the heart of this, that we are so passionate about trying to help parents to understand your kids need you, and you need you to be who you are. So I'm grateful to have this chance to share that with you guys.
Thank you, Dee Dee, so much, and thank you for reminding me when I had forgotten who I was and who I needed to be for the sake of my kids and the environment in my home, and that's why I wanted to share you with everybody. So thank you.